Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest development. I so loved recording this episode because we got to talk about all of the health issues that are so important and really just popular in a sad way in today's day and age. I'm talking digestive issues, hormonal imbalance, chemtrails, all of it. We go into it in this episode, and the next episode you're going to hear next week, which is with Garry's wife. So if you're not familiar with the Human Garage, you may have seen them on my Instagram, but they're this incredible center in LA that is dedicated to teaching us about the interconnectivity of our bodies and how our bodies are a reflection of our nature, our food, our environment, our stress levels, our childhood traumas, all of it. And they work extremely functionally. So for example, you walk up and down the room and they notice how you're walking, and from those imbalances, maybe your shoulder's higher than another, etc., 2 or sometimes 3 people are pressing different, kind of points in your body. But the point of it is not to adjust your shoulder the same way a chiropractor would or a rolfer would. It's actually to help rewire your brain so your brain can carry itself. Because if you've ever noticed, sometimes we keep going back and forth to the same chiropractor, the same massage therapist, whatever it is, to fix our issues. I know that was my lifelong thing with, flat feet and bunions and not walking correctly. And I was always going to get help and then always ending up back in square one with back issues, hip issues, shoulder pain, etc. So that's what led to me finding the Human Garage. But then I realized it was so much more than that. And oftentimes the reason why we hold this pain and tension in our body is related to undiagnosed, Epstein-Barr virus, other autoimmune conditions, toxins in our systems, a reflection of our food, environment, pollution, all of it. So it's extremely integrative and multilateral. And that's what I really love about the Human Garage's perspective, that it's not just one thing that you can just go fix. It's a lifestyle. And now what they're really dedicating to are educational services. They don't want to be the doctor's clinic that you go, get a treatment, come back, come again. They want to educate us on how to heal ourselves, especially with crystals, with healing modalities, with little pressure points that we can do on ourselves. In this episode, Garry shares with us how we can rotate our knees so we can actually rebalance our bodies by just this kind of like knee rotation thing that we just do with our hands. So it's little things like that that are affordable, free, in fact, most of them, that we can all do to have the most radiant bodies that we could possibly have, given our pollution and stress and modern day lifestyles that are not the most conducive to a limbic open body. We're sitting in chairs, we're stuffed, we're not spending enough time outside. I mean, even like one thing that they really told me to do is just like walk outside with your feet in the earth, and that's going to help the arches of your feet reappear again. Because a lot of times why we have flat feet or any kind of foot issue, which leads to hip issues, shoulder issues, it's all connected, is because our bodies are just not used to operating in the real world anymore. And if we can operate in the real world, like going on a hike barefoot, that's something I have been doing this year and has been super game changing. Of course, doing it in a place that obviously doesn't have glass is safe, but this is how we used to walk for thousands of years. We never had rubber sole shoes. That's a very modern invention. And since the invention of that, which is something Deepak Chopra speaks about as well, there have been a lot of diseases. So in this episode, we really talk about the key health problems that especially he sees in the millennial generation. He shares with us that when he started his practice, decades ago, it was mostly older people coming to him for whatever health issue. And now the majority are millennial females, which is us. You may be a male, you may be a little older, but I would say the majority of you guys listening right now are millennial females. And the fact that we are the population with the most health issues shows a lot. So in this episode, we talk about why that is. Is it the foods we're eating? Are they the birth control pills that we were prescribed from a young age, or the vaccines we were given, or just our stress? What is it that's making us so susceptible to, nowadays having digestive issues is normal. Everyone's complaining about being bloated or having candida or having IBS or period irregularity or cramps or fibromyalgia, etc. Like these things are normal and they shouldn't be. So this episode is really going deep into talking about why and most importantly, what we can do about it naturally, holistically, and empowered. So without further ado, let's welcome Garry of the Human Garage to the Highest Self podcast. And before we get started, check out these brands that make Highest Self podcast possible. Are you interested in having a career focused on health and wellness? Well, if so, then the universe is calling you to become a holistic health coach. I am offering this incredible deal, a discount of $1,500 off my alma mater, Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is the world's largest nutrition school with guest teachers such as Deepak Chopra, Chris Carr, Dr. Hyman, and Dr. Andrew Whale, and so many others. It is split between 6 months of health coaching programs teaching you hundreds of nutritional theories, including Ayurveda, as well as 6 months of business coaching. And as an additional bonus, I am offering a webinar where I will teach you how to use social media to create a thriving career as a health coach. On top of that, I have created a private Facebook community just for the Highest Self podcast listeners who are becoming health coaches to connect with each other, meet up with each other, and support one another on this journey. So if you're interested, send an email over to Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. Again, Sahara at eatfeelfresh.com with subject IIN. And I will personally send you back the email that will allow you to get a $1,500 off discount, as well as my business coaching webinar and the private Facebook group. I'm so excited for you to begin your journey as a health coach. This episode is brought to you by Ayurveda. Ayurveda is a modernized Ayurvedic supplement company that takes certain issues that we have, such as mood, joints, immunity, digestion, and creates these custom little packets exactly for us, infusing ancient Ayurvedic herbs with modern vitamins and minerals. I take the mood formula daily. It is great if you work a stressful job, had adrenal fatigue, ever suffer from anxiety or even depression. And it really heals you from a fundamental and holistic level. So if you want to try it out, head over to Youveda, YOUVEDA.com. Use the code Sahara and you'll receive 35% off your first order. And they now ship to almost every country globally. So check it out if you live internationally. They may be shipping to your country too. And they just added India, guys. Welcome, Garry, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so good to have you here.
It's so glad to be here. It's been a while. We've been talking about this for about a year.
Yes, I'm super excited to just present your information with all of the community. But before we get started, I would love to ask you, what makes you your highest self?
It's real simple. Making me my highest self is being connected to my body without interruption. You know, I spent my whole life, like everybody else, dealing with stress, anxiety, fear, dealing with EMF, chemicals, chemical intrusion, vaccinations, all the stuff that disrupts us from being connected to our bodies. And I spent the last decade, well, 3 decades, but the last decade intensively taking all that stuff out. And there's a point where you actually hit it. And when you hit it, you'll know it. And your life changes forever. And that's simply just defined by there's no interruption between the brain and the body.
Love that so much. And it's amazing how so many of us are dealing with these interruptions on a daily basis and we have no idea and we blame it on different things or try to use these creams and oils. And there can be such a deep cause that so many of us are dealing with that just that one fix changes everything, which we'll dive into.
We'll dive into for sure. But I just want to say, I really appreciate what you're doing because you look at it from the science and then the interaction with the science. And most people are just going on fads or beliefs and whatever. And, you know, I think that for a long time, if you take a look at Vedic and what Vedic did is it was really about the lifestyle and the food. And if you look at Chinese medicine, it's really about the meridians and the fixing. And when you combine and mesh the two together, which we've done very well here, you start to be able to really help people impact them at a high level because our food is our medicine and we are just a collection of what we eat. And if we're going to fix an organ without looking at what we're eating, then it's not going to work. And that's part of the problem. People want to get things fixed, but they don't want to change their lives.
So true. Yes, it has to be as simple as the foods we eat and as deep as functionally changing our bodies and shifting the way that everything is structured, which you guys do on both levels. So I want to talk about the digestive issues. I mean, I feel like our generation, everyone has some sort of digestive issue, especially I see bloating, constipation, etc. So can you please tell us what is the cause of this rampant digestive epidemic?
There's a lot of causes, and that's part of the problem is that you can't nail it down to one specific thing. If you try to nail it down to one specific thing, you're going to miss everything else. And the body's an entire organism that needs to be treated as such. But some of the major things are just really, really simple things. We're eating food that wasn't designed to be in our body. We are not designed to have chemicals in our body. End of story. No argument. There is no reason why we should have. Everything that we have chemically is a copy from something in nature. So one of the best examples I give people, things like aspirin. Aspirin as far as a pharmacological product is pretty benign. It just makes your stomach bleed. But it also calms you down. But if you take, like Wish Garden, for example, one of the products we have here, they'll use birch bark. And if you use white willow bark is the same as aspirin, but it does not make the stomach bleed. And it actually works in 15 to 20 seconds as opposed to 20 minutes.
I didn't know aspirin makes your stomach bleed. That's really scary.
Well, don't be too scared about it. I mean, it does. It's a small bleeding in the stomach. But what I'm saying is if you had a headache, you can use white willow bark, and it's natural. And this is more where I think your generation and where your market's heading to is what can we do for ourselves? I don't want to wait till I'm sick to do something. I want to do something. I want to catch it in advance. And it's really starting to understand our bodies, and it starts with digestion. So let's break digestion into two parts. People say, well, I go to the bathroom every day, so I'm digesting okay. That's not true. And I'm not bloated, so I'm digesting okay. Again, that's not true necessarily. Digestion happens in the stomach. Processing of the food happens in the intestines. And if it doesn't get processed in the stomach properly, when it moves to the small intestines, then if it's like, for example, if we're too alkaline and we put meat into our stomach, and our stomach has got a pH of 2. So our stomach has to have a pH of 1, and if it's a pH 2, 50% of your food's not being digested by the time it hits your small intestines. Well, then it spends too much time in your small intestines, and that's where you're starting to get the backup in the small intestines, and that's where all of the autoimmune disease problems are coming from. And then on top of it, your generation has something that no other generation in the history of the world has experienced. You were born into toxicity. So when we test children are 8 or 9, 10 years old, they'll have fatty livers. And their livers look like a 50-year-old who's been working and doing a normal job and drinking on weekends, and they're like 10 years old. And that's part of the problem. So a lot of the digestive issues right now are imbalances in between alkalinity, mineralization in the body, and also imbalances in our interaction with our environment. And then the last part is we're born toxic.
Well, that is just so heartbreaking that kids are just born into toxicity when, I feel like all of us, we try so hard. I notice in myself, I'm like, I eat salads and all the greens. Like, why do I still have these issues? And it's past that. It's what was that soil like? What were the chemicals that were put into that soil, et cetera? Yes. Where are the minerals? The fact that we have so many fewer minerals in the exact same foods as we did even 50 years ago that, it can really feel like an uphill battle to just be able to get enough nutrients these days.
Yeah, because I have people all the time, well, I try to eat organic. There isn't a try. Either you are or you're not. End of story. If you're not eating organic, every time you put something in your body, that takes time for the body to process the chemical. So, yeah, it's better if you have no option or no choice to do the best that you can. But if you have the option and choice, there should be nothing that stops you from getting what you need. Food is our medicine, as we said. And and we are a collection of everything that we eat. So eventually, if we have sickness, it has to do with the food or the dysregulation of the processing of that food is why we're sick. You think about it. We only have about 19 or so monogenetic diseases. The number might not be exact, right? But every disease after that, those ones means if you have the disease, or you have the gene, you have the disease. But every disease past that point is affected by stress. So stress is what is the dysregulator that causes you to get cancer if you have a breast cancer gene. And that's a really common one in your generation right now. Like with almost half the women having breast cancer, it's scary. And
you were saying how almost all of the millennial women have the same issues that come into Human Garage. Can you explain what you see?
So we started, if we take a step back and go back, let's say 2 years ago, the majority of our clients would be 45 to 65 years old. That's been pretty consistent since I've been in the business. About a year ago, we started being inundated by women under the age of 35, to the point it became 2/3 of our business overnight. And
I was one of them.
You were one of them. It was actually about the time. Yeah, it was about the time you started coming in. We started seeing all these young women. So we spent the last year trying to figure out why are they all coming, and we started putting up their charts and looking at their lab work, looking at their treatment results, and we started to notice patterns. And one of the patterns, which was incredible, was the symptomatic pattern. As 100% of the women that have come to the Human Garage under the age of 35 have had autoimmune symptoms. And it starts off with eczema, rashes, rosacea. And that's why we always ask you where it is on your skin, because we can tell what organ's suffering by where it lands on the skin. So skin placement is very important. We don't just randomly get a zit on our face. It's on a certain part of our face for a certain reason.
Yes.
And what we've been doing is we've been tracking down the processes, and we started to notice that the skin irritations would happen, and then they'd start having cold hands, cold feet. Then they'd start having, a little bit of fatigue, chronic, and then became chronic fatigue. They would start having issues like depression, anxiety, and bloating and gas. And all of those things combined as a perfect melting pot. And then more importantly, when we started working on, because we do a lot of visceral or touching work, when I touch the innards or the intestines or move through the belly of a 30-plus-year-old woman, like 30, 31-year-old woman, it feels like to me like I'm working on a 65 or 70-year-old woman, because the organs, they don't have separation. It means that the fascia that surrounds them has been pushed together, stuck together. And that's what fascia does. If two items or two organs or two muscles come together and stick together too long, the brain will actually treat them as one. And that's what's starting to happen, where young women no longer have organs, they have an organ. And that's what's scary, because that was something we would see at the end of the life cycle of people. And it's predominantly women, not men. It's first women. Men are coming in still around 40, 45, but the millennial men are still, they didn't have the same toxic buildup that you did. Let me give you some differences. I'm 50. How old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay, so I'm almost twice your age. Wow. That really puts a pin in it
Hey,
right there.
Dad.
So at 50 years old, my generation, when I went to school, women would start wearing makeup in the senior year. Birth control, never. Tampons were cotton. Today, tampons are basically the same chemical composition as a cigarette with bleach, and you bypass your digestive process and you put it right into your bloodstream. And so we're getting women at 3 years old, putting makeup on and putting nail polish on, and we're putting tampons on. We're putting on the pill at 12 or 13 years old. And if you look at the day that the pill started, and you look at breast cancer at that date, and look at breast cancer today, you can just see a direct correlation. And I'm not going to say that the pill causes breast cancer, but I'm going to say that when you dysregulate the hormones in your body can't do its job. And what is cancer? Cancer is your body not doing its job. That's all it is. We're designed to heal ourselves. And for the most part, we just got to get out of our own way.
So well said. And I remember when your team had done the different stomach massage manipulation things, the same thing was happening with me. Like the valve on bottom of my digestive system was shut off.
Yeah, almost 100% of women under 35 have their ileocecal valve not only blocked. And so when it's blocked, it causes distension, bloating, and it causes constipation. When it's blocked open, so the valve can get lodged open too. It causes IBS symptoms and pains, diarrhea, and gastrointestinal distress. And those are really common things that we see every day with women today.
Is there any way that we can check on our own stomachs, like for listeners?
Yep,
want to
sure.
do a little test?
Yeah, you can go from your belly button and draw a direct line to your right hip.
Okay.
And just draw a line there. Okay. If you go 3/4 of the way down, right above the hip bone, you press inside, it should be soft. And if it's hard or painful, or if it feels like you can't move in there, like on the other side, it should be pretty soft as well. But on this hip, it should be. And it's for most of the people that we see that are under the age of 35, that's not true.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe it could be my six-pack abs, but I think it's
there's a difference between your abs and the muscle tightness and your ability to penetrate the body. Like you're gonna feel a block there. And because the first day that I met you, we actually released it, but we moved your intestines off the pelvic floor. So what we've noticed is that because people have bad posture today, we have this video of Flatiron, New York, where it's a camera angle looking at the Flatiron building, and the people are walking by, and it's like 1920. And it was relatively unremarkable until I noticed that everybody had perfect posture. So we're shooting the same video
And we're like,
now, and everybody's hunched over and walking around.
On their phones.
So when we hunch over on our phones, what happens is the head goes forward. When the head goes forward, the hips go out, and the body starts to curve on a side profile. That curve pushes all the pressure from that's in the intestinal cavity underneath the diaphragm and pushes the intestines onto the pelvic floor. And when you put pressure, that means that for women, for example, all of your intestines, your small intestines and your large intestines, are actually pushing against your uterus and pushing against your bladder. For guys, it's just a bladder. But when it stays there too long, it gets stuck. And that's part of the problem. You know, it's funny because, I know you're into yoga, you're into breathing, you're into meditation. Breathing is so important, but proper breathing. So the diaphragm, the job of the diaphragm when we breathe, it's a pump. And it massages the intestines. And without the massaging of the intestines, food has to pound its way through the GI tract, meaning it stays in the body too long. And if it stays in the body too long, that's where disease happens. And there's some real simple basics that I think we just generally haven't looked at. And part of the job of the Human Garage is to help cut through the riffraff of supposed science. Because right now, I really have a lot of respect for what you do because you're cutting through science. If there's a controversial topic in healthcare today that affects the body, you can guarantee that there's 2 PhDs from separate universities with completely peer-reviewed, completely opposing science. So the question is, how do I make a decision? Fluoride, good for me or bad? Vaccinations, good or bad? Pill, good or bad? Pesticides, good or bad? Can I eat a herbicide? Glyphosate? And there's all these questions. And so instead of going to science, which we have moved away from, we've gone to evidence and results. And we reproduce the results, which is a scientific method. And we're going to start sharing that with the world this year as we train practitioners. For the first time in 6.5 years, after 8,000 people, we're now confident enough that we can train a medical practitioner of any kind to do our work. And what we want is because we've learned how to give people one tool that they can be in control of. So remember what we said is that you have a few monogenetic diseases, and everything else is a dysregulation of that disease process. So that's stress. So basically, if you control your stress response, you control your disease process. It's that simple. And people say, well, I can't control my work, my government, traffic in LA. I can't control those things. You're right. But that's not stress. Those are stressors. My response to it is stress. And the best way I can tell you to be practical is like if you get hungover and you go to work the next day, everything's hard. Every decision, everything's frustrating, lights are aggravating, you just want to lay your head down, right? Well, when your body's stressed out, when it has too much stress hormones in it, it's drunk on adrenaline, noradrenaline, norepinephrine. And when your body's drunk on noradrenaline, norepinephrine, and adrenaline, what happens is your body gets hungover, and then it has very little ability to deal with the stressors of life. And this is what people are living with right now. This is your market. I mean, you guys are born into toxicity, you're living in it, and you're trying to find your way out of it. So your stress cup is full the day you're born. I'm 50, like I said, I had a running head start. I had a garden when I was young. I used to, the bad pranks was stealing food from the garden of your neighbors when I was a kid. Today, it's like,
destroying their house.
Destroying a house or being in a gang or shooting somebody up or something like that, right? It's really changed, hasn't it?
Yeah, I like to remind myself sometimes if I'm stressed out, it's not the traffic that is stressful, it is me that is stressful.
Correct. And so with our tools and what we're going to be releasing online with you is some simple tools that people can do to remove 75% of their stress in 15 minutes or less. And if you can control your stress by simply manipulating the fascia in your body in different areas, then you're now in control of your disease process, or more pointedly, your health process. And that's what we want. We are in the process of democratizing health care. And what I mean by that is by giving the tools back to the people where they belong. You were designed the day you were born to heal yourself. And if you're not healing, there's a reason why. Body's an amazing thing. You know some of the science of the body, which is really incredible? So neuroscience, quantum science, and they're getting into some really cool areas, but their body, every cell in the body has a charge, and it's a negative and positive charge, and it's actually 1.4 volts is the actual charge on each cell. We have 50 trillion cells. That means we have 70 trillion volts of electricity in a human body. Remember the movie The Matrix? Yeah, we are batteries. Yeah, and so you just got to take a step back and think about, why does somebody want to make that light dimmer? And, and that's part of what you're fighting against. And that's part of why we're here today.
So true. And you also shared how we are essentially crystals as well.
Right. Isn't that funny? The fascial network. So our body's covered head to toe in fascia. And fascia is the only thing that's connective from the top of your body to the bottom. For people who've never seen it, go to YouTube and watch Fascia magnified 25 times. I think I showed you that video, right, when we first started?
I think so.
All the water moving around the fascia. Fascia is a live organic structure. It's very, very neurologically intense. It's biophotonic, so it moves information at the speed of light. It has roughly 90% of the nerves and 90% of the lymph nodes are in the fascia. Fascia covers every muscle, every organ, goes through the heart, through the brain, and more importantly, it's one sheet. And the cool part that we were talking about, it's the same chemical composition as a quartz crystal. So basically, we're a liquid crystal. And when fascia gets tight and hard, like a scar or for like a compensation, it gets kind of crystally gritty feeling.
So maybe I could just make my wedding ring out of my scars. It's like, come on, crystallize it up. Yeah.
Sure. I never quite thought of it that way, but yeah, you have a fascia ring.
In the future, fascia wedding rings.
Fascia wedding ring.
That's so interesting.
So, and the latest craze is, with everything from rolfing all the way through to fascia blasters and stuff like that, is let's beat up the fascia. So really simple thought process is, if you wouldn't do it to your brain, don't do it to your fascia. Your brain is 100 billion nerve endings. Your fascia is 100 trillion nerve endings. So your fascia feeds more information to the whole organism. And that's what we have to think of the body as, an organism, not as a brain separate from the body. Because we're not. Our body is a series of interdependent systems. And if we step outside of humanity and we look at engineering, interdependent system models have one thing in common. If one system fails or disrupts, every other system has to compensate. And that's what our body is. If one thing doesn't work, everything compensates around it.
Interesting. So you wouldn't recommend doing like rolfing, which is like a hard manipulation, or any...
I'm probably going to get in trouble when I say this, right? Yeah. So for all you rolfers out there, there's a better way. I started off with that. 30 sessions of rolfing was part of my 20-year journey of trying to get my body back in gear. And there are benefits to it. I mean, it wouldn't be as prolific if it didn't work to some degree. It's just not answering all the problems. And the challenge that we found at Human Garage is a lot of our work felt like and looked like rolfing, but we realized that we were creating more problems as we're going. And so the net result was people felt good, but they had to come back. Today, the average client comes back twice a year, whereas it used to be back 12 times a year. And the reason why is because we've been finding ways to give them tools at home to manage predominantly their stress. And if you can manage your stress, because what is body tightness? It's just stress dysregulated. However you look at it, that's all it is.
So do you think that there are certain reasons why some of us carry stress in our shoulders versus our hips versus different parts of our bodies? Do you see it tied to different emotions?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's why we ask where skin rashes are on your skin. If you got it on your outside of your arm and down your forearm, down the top, that's going to be your large intestine. On the inside, from the thumb all the way up into the pec, that's your lung. From the baby finger all the way up the inside is your heart, and then on the tricep is the small intestines. So we had a client in here, he was a Navy SEAL, and he had broken his shoulder, and he had tore labor and broke the shoulder joint, and he couldn't lift his arm. And one of our practitioners actually went and cleared, because there's a lot of small intestine, large intestine on there, cleared the small intestine and large intestine meridians on his feet, and then all of a sudden he lifts his arm. This is just a couple of days ago, so it's really fresh in my mind, but those things happen every day. So yes, pain in different areas of your body can be either generated by dysfunction in an organ or by the body's desire to just stay mobile. So think about this. When you stand up, your body has hardwired rules that it has to think about so it can move through the world. First one is, at all costs, the body will stand. And you watch this, when you watch these videos where people they fall off of, accident videos, like they show the stupid ones on America's Funniest Videos or something. And the first thing they do when they fall down, they try to jump up. Horses do it, dogs do it, cats do it. It's not because we're embarrassed, it's because the brain is trying to establish, am I okay? So at all costs, it'll make you stand up. And then the next thing is they try to walk. It doesn't matter how broken they are. So can I stand, can I walk, and protect the head? And those are three rules that the body has to address every time that it's awake in the environment that we live in.
It's so beautiful. It like makes me emotional how like beautiful the human body is, that we're just like these creatures that want to like protect our heads and walk.
But that's all it really is when it comes down to it. So it's like when you pick up a young child, like say a 3-year-old child, and they're sleeping, they're like floppy all over the place. But if you pick up an adult when they sleep, they're not like that. They're slightly rigid. Because as an adult, we are prepared to stand, walk, and move at any time. So even when we sleep, we're slightly rigid, unless you're blind drunk. If somebody's drunk, you can't move them.
Right.
That's because they're not rigid.
Yeah.
So the body's always trying to adapt to the world that we live in. And if it gets the wrong information, it has the wrong adaptation. And that's where chemicals come in. Because what do chemicals do? It confuses the way we experience the world. It's like, why do we crave things like Cheetos? I mean, I don't crave Cheetos, but
the salt, sugar,
it's because
fat.
Sugar is fat. But more specifically is that some of the chemicals in Cheetos actually mimic the signature, like a homeopathic or a pharmacological product. They mimic the signature of things like calcium. So your brain says, "Oh, I got calcium, good." But just like taking a mood stabilizer, as a, instead of taking like a tea that can reduce depression, we take Lexapro or something like that, and we take the mood stabilizer, and it has an immediate short-term effect, and then it has this kind of hole that you're left with. And that's the same thing. So it's the whole idea is the body's just trying to understand and adapt to the world. And if we look at it that way, what our therapies were based around was helping the body understand what the problems are with the adaptation and how it can adapt. Because that's all it's looking to do. It just wants to live. It just wants to stand, walk, move, breathe, eat, move around and do our things. And that's effectively what our vehicle is doing.
Okay, real talk, the product I'm about to tell you about is literally the best thing I've ever put into my mouth, and that is saying a lot. And this is Organifi's Gold. So essentially it is the hot chocolate of your dreams with none of the sugar and all of the turmeric and reishi with a touch of ginger as well. It is delicious on its own, just with water. When I was on my Panchakarma and I couldn't have any sugar or chocolate, anything like that, I brought my Organifi Gold with me. Panchakarma approved, and all I needed was hot water, and it was the perfect, just sweet, soothing, desserty taste that I so deeply crave after meals. And it makes me feel so calm, so restorative. It is my optimal nighttime tonic. And literally, I've gotten all my friends on it, and I'm pinching myself that they are my podcast sponsors, because even if they weren't, I would still be telling everyone about it. So head over to Organifi.com and use coupon code Sahara for 20% off. That is Organifi, ORGANIFI.com. Use coupon code Sahara for 20% off your gold. Sometimes you're on the go and you don't have time to make your Ayurvedic 6-taste bowl, and that is when a really good bar comes in. I've been on the hunt for so long for a bar that hits my requirements, and that's organic, vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, clean, no weird shit in it, And it's really hard out there, but I'm super stoked that I found Go Macro, and I recently went to Burning Man and I brought Go Macro with me, and oh my God, what a lifesaver it was. So I love that it has sustainably grown ingredients and really cool ones like their almond butter carob bar, which is delicious. They have a really good granola and coconut bar. Even my husband loves them and he's very taste conscious. So I'm obsessed. Now you can get your own by heading over to gomacro.com and using coupon code Sahara for 30% off and free shipping. That's gomacro.com with coupon code Sahara for 30% off. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't even need to tell you how good turmeric is for you, but I am going to tell you how you can take your turmeric game up a notch. So I've been drinking Vadam Tea's new turmeric line, and they have these 4 teas that I've been rotating on a daily basis, which I want to share with you. We're about to get a little Ayurvedic nerdy right now. So in the morning, I'll have the turmeric spice tea, which is really good for the digestive system, getting things stimulated, waking up the Agni. After lunch, I'll have the turmeric ginger tea, which is really good for digestion and enhances pitta, which is highest in the middle of the day. At night, I'll have the turmeric ashwagandha tea, which relieves stress, just gets my body ready to sleep. And then right before I sleep, I'll have the turmeric moringa tea, which acts as a natural laxative. Because, you gotta detoxify. So I love these 4 teas together, and they actually come in the new turmeric line that Vadam is offering. So head over to vadamteas.com, VAHDAM teas.com, and use coupon code Sahara for 20% off. Again, that's vadamteas.com with coupon code Sahara for 20% off. Speaking of which, of chemicals, I was just at Coachella and I just saw a lot of young people taking Molly, ecstasy. What do you think are the, long-term health effects on these kind of drugs?
Wow, putting me on the spot, aren't we? They all have different effects. I think, like Molly was actually from sassafras or sassafras.
Yeah, originally, yeah. Yes.
I think anytime we take the original of something, every herb has an effect on the human body. My wife, she's become a white witch. She's making potions and cocktails. Our house has turned into an apothecary. She made one last night that I call the wake up juice. And it says it's a blend of herbs. And when she gave it to me, I looked in, she was like in her bed, and she was like kind of laughing and looking at her computer and kind of smiling. And I said, are you high or something? And she goes, no, I just had the tea. And then I had the tea, and then I flipped out too. And all it was, what it was is just it's pure herbs delivered to the body that's clean. Mm-hmm. So when we make chemical copies of things, there's waste byproducts. And I think MDMA, for example, has been used quite effectively in therapies, and things like ketamine is being used in therapies today. And I agree with the use. Mm-hmm. I just disagree with the abuse. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is to use these things for microdosing under proper supervised care. Mm-hmm. And it allows the person to shift out of their reality and see themselves from another perspective. Mm-hmm. But I was in the 90s scene in Canada, and Molly, ecstasy, cocaine, stuff like that, through the 80s and 90s. I mean, that was. I grew up. I was a kid too. Mm-hmm. I mean, at one point I had all these issues, and that was our thing. It was alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and ecstasy. That's all we had back then. Mm-hmm. Crystal meth didn't exist. Mm. So I'm really concerned that people are abusing it, but that's with anything. I mean, you can abuse food too. So
yeah, very true. So let's talk about hormones. Hormones are another thing that almost every, especially millennial woman, is dealing with. Maybe men are too, they're just not aware.
Men with erectile dysfunction at 30.
Yes.
Come on. Mm-hmm. I had erectile dysfunction at 40, and that was corrected when we balanced my chemistry. It's all about chemistry. You don't have those problems, and women with hormonals and imbalances and stuff like that. We're forgetting that hormones and stress dysregulate hormones. So if we're in stress, that's causing a dysregulation of our hormones. So, for example, if your stress is coming from your body, like if you have back pain, neck pain, if you're walking around, anything outside of standing and walking and breathing perfectly, I mean, standing and walking without any discomfort, without a foot that doesn't go right, a hip that's not in pain, anything other than perfect movement is a stress to the body. So when you can repair the movement and make it perfect, and the posture and alignment, it reduces the body stress. Now, our numbers, we did pre and post testing on several thousand clients before and after treatment, and we tested their stress hormone production, and we show a 75% reduction in stress every time the body is relatively aligned. Mm. And we've done blood and saliva tests as evidence for that. And what I'm finding is that we forget that as soon as adrenaline hits your bloodstream, and adrenaline is the stress hormone, the first one, and then you have noradrenaline, norepinephrine. As soon as adrenaline hits your bloodstream, there is going to be a release of cortisol after that, and there's an order to which they're released and for why. And with adrenaline and cortisol, for the next 4 to 6 hours, it automatically suppresses testosterone, estrogen, estradiol, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and melatonin. All the hormones you need that are good hormones are suppressed when your body's in stress. That's a scientifically validated and true statement. There's no room for opinion on that anywhere. It's been cross-validated over millions of studies over tens of thousands of years. The real issue is that we are trying to fix hormone issues, like a lot of women coming in with fertility issues now. Most women under the age of 35, a lot of them are infertile. That's why accidental pregnancies has dropped like thousands of % in the last 20 years. Mm. Yeah, it's not because we're having less sex. because that's totally not true.
Right.
I mean, Tinder kind of took that right out of play, right?
Right.
It's because we're having more stress in our bodies, our hormones are dysregulated. So, think about a bathtub. A good analogy is when you have a bathtub, if you want to fill it up, you have two options. You can turn on the water, but if the plug isn't in the basin and you turn on the water, it's going to go in and out. So if you really want to fill up the bathtub, you have to plug the hole and turn on the water. A lot of what we're doing, even in fertility issues and in performance issues, is turn on the hormones, like do more of it. Get more testosterone, give me more estrogen, give me more whatever. We're not dealing with the back end is why do we have a problem in the first place? Listen, if you're under the age of 50 and you're having problems with hormone regulation and you're a woman, it's simply that there's some imbalances in your body and it can be repaired. I'm 50 again. I have a testosterone count today, just under 900. Which is high for an 18-year-old male. Now, when I was 44, I had a testosterone count of 220, which is low for a 50-year-old male. According to medical science, my age should have been the thing that said that I have less testosterone. But that's not how our bodies work. Our bodies don't adhere to medical science. They don't even adhere to time. They adhere to how well we take care of them. And that's what I love about what you do. You're really showing people how to take care of their bodies. You're not just interviewing a bunch of people and saying, do this or do that, or point them to another fad or idea. You're saying, hey, let's talk about how we feel, how we interact with our bodies. Let's look at what style you should eat and what works with you and what doesn't work with you, because that's the foundation. If we don't fix the first part, which you're doing, then the rest of it's just repairing. And we're tired of fixing people. I mean, we're good at it, but we're tired of fixing people. So we're shifting a lot of our focus to content and education. Because especially at 25 and 30, almost everything that you have as a problem in your body can be resolved in 5 years or less if we just change the lifestyle.
So true. So what is something that everyone can do that's like pretty instant fix of just stress?
Stress, well, there's a couple of things. Breathing, as you know, so people go and they try to go to yoga or breathing classes or breathwork classes. The only problem is, if you're not breathing diaphragmatically and you go to a breathwork class, you're going to become hypoxic. So you're going to create the opposite of stress. You're going to create adrenaline. And that's 90+% of the population, even the best yogis I know. So mechanically, we fix the diaphragm. But the other two big indicators of stress are around the face, around the jaw. So part of it is we have a video that we'll send out. And everybody's different on one side or the other, but you can take the fascia around the jaw joint and you can take your hands and place them onto your jaw, right around the joint, a little bit back further. Yeah, right at the end of the joint. And for you turn your right one forward and you turn your left one back. And you just hold it there like that. And you hold it for 2 to 3 minutes. And what that'll do is it's going to start to relax your body. It's going to relax your muscles and you'll feel it.
And this is called torquing, right?
Yeah, untorquing.
Untorquing.
Yeah, because we're torqued.
Okay.
Okay, right about now, you should start to feel things relax.
I feel like my eyebrows are more relaxed.
Eyebrows, but also watch in your quads. Your hips will start to really relax a little bit. We're taking a minute break here just to get out of stress. And if you do this for 2 to 3 minutes, it will take down, and then the other one is in the ears, which you can't do because we're wearing headsets. The ears are opposite. Right ear would be back for you, and left ear would be forward, inside the ear, putting the fingers right to the base and twisting the fascia.
So for everyone, move their right forward and their left back.
Depends on the placement of the face. So people could be different. So we have a video that we'll attach along with this, which we call homework exercises.
Okay.
And the homework exercises are things you can do to your body, to your fascia, without a set of tools, all by yourself, that can reduce your stress and tension in your body by 75% in 15 minutes or less. And that's really what we want. We want people to be in control of what makes them sick. Because if you have the best doctors, you have the best diet in the world, you can run, you can exercise, you can meditate all you want. But if your body is in stress, you're going to be sick. I don't care how good of a lifestyle you have. What you're doing with all these people that have their bodies tight, sick, in pain, and they're doing all this extra work, they're just prolonging until they get into problems. And sometimes, quite often, they're accelerating it.
So do you think with our breathing, we should always be breathing from our stomachs, like our stomachs inhaling and exhaling, or that's more for deep relaxation?
Well, so the way the breathing mechanism is designed is we're supposed to breathe with the diaphragm. The lungs are attached to the diaphragm. The diaphragm wraps around your rib cage, around the center, and it's like a dome. And that dome folds down. As it folds down, it does 3 things. It removes pressure into the lower part of the body. So that massages your internal organs. So if you don't breathe with your belly, you're not massaging your organs. Now, those organs don't have a way to move stuff through them. Like, for example, you have 10 inside organs. Your heart, your stomach, and your bladder, those are muscles. They contract. But the other 7, how do they work? They work through the regulation of pressure, that's breathing in the body. But you have to diaphragmatically breathe. And 60% of all your lymph nodes are right here, right underneath the diaphragm. So if you're not breathing with your belly, you're not engaging 60% of your lymph nodes. End of story. There's just not, we were designed to breathe and respirate and walk. The breathing with the chest and the shoulders, that's for the last 25%. You're supposed to breathe 75% of your power is in the lower lungs. And the lungs are designed that way too. The lungs are pear-shaped. And the bottom half, because it's cylindrical, is 75% of the mass of the lung. That's where the oxygen is absorbed. If you breathe with your chest and your shoulders, you're only getting 25% of the oxygen that comes in delivered into tissue. So you have to breathe 4 times more to get the same result. And you're not pumping all the fluids through your GI tract. So it's really important. Diaphragmatic breathing and breathing in your belly, I don't care what anybody says on any other program, you can use another breathing technique to create like we have a Wim Hof course here coming next month. And I like what Wim Hof does with breathing and how it increases performance in the body and stuff like that. But I'm not going to breathe like that every single moment of every day. I breathe normally the way my body was designed, that's diaphragmatically. That means I breathe through my belly.
So what about when people say tuck in your stomach? How can you tuck in your stomach and breathe diaphragmatically at the same time?
I'll do it right now. See, that's out.
I always feel like whenever I kind of tuck in my stomach, then I stop breathing from there.
Well, that's probably, it could be, and if it is, we can fix it downstairs.
Okay.
That means that their diaphragm's not properly firing. It's just like a glute that's not firing.
I always get confused in the car. I'm like, okay, should I be tucked in or breathing diaphragmatically? And then I debate myself.
So what you're debating around is actually more so for alignment, posture, and strength, like core stability. But I can make my core stable and still diaphragmatically breathe. And you want to breathe circumferentially. You don't not just in the belly. You want the whole rib cage to move. And the challenge is a lot of people, because we don't move, we're complacent, we've been sedentary. The rib cage is stuck. The diaphragm doesn't work right. And it needs to be reprogrammed. And that's the first thing that we do when people come into the Human Garage. We make sure that the body can stand and walk with effortless and without any other compensation. And we're going to be publishing a bunch of, anytime you see on our website or on our social media, a before and after shot, 99% of the time, that's one session. We don't say that because we've never said that up to this point because no one would believe us. But now we're actually saying one session results. And it's true. We can deliver those results in a single session.
Yeah, no, I remember before and after each of my sessions, you would take a picture and my face would be more symmetrical. And just from essentially unraveling the fascia in my body.
Yeah. The question is, why is it raveled and twisted in the first place? Maybe that's a better one. Well, think about it. Think about how we're conceived. A sperm meets an egg, launches on the uterus wall, and then an umbilical cord grows and it spirals. Then a baby's born and it spirals. And then the baby turns constantly until it comes out. And then when the umbilical cord, it comes out, it's like this big, it's like your cell phone cord that's never been kept properly because it's been turning and torquing the entire time. That's why we're born in a spiral. We live in a spiral because gravity is a spiral force on us. And we exert our force against the spiral, that same force. Gravity and atmospheric pressure were never considered when we thought about how do we help the human being, because I think it's because it's like air. You don't think of air until you don't have it. But, we've scoured the earth. We work with professional athletes. We work with the pro teams. And we fix things that they can't fix. And the reason why is not because we're better practitioners. It's because we're just looking at what the body's trying to do in gravity. And if you understand what the body's trying to do and what it can't do, then you're probably able to help it do it. And that's basically what our whole therapy is about, which you've had the chance to experience. It's like you can come in with one thing and it can completely change in a second or two.
Yeah, and I love how you always take account the way that the earth is spinning and how that's going to affect, and how sometimes our right side is different than the left side because of this gravitational force. Yeah,
as we started getting international clients, we got a lot of clients from Australia, South America. The Australians are funny because they always come up and they're so friendly. I'm Canadian, so they're like Canadians. So when they come up, they're so funny. They all of their patterns are backwards. And I just had a bunch of Aussies come up here last week. And at first, because you're so used to dealing with North Americans or people in the Northern Hemisphere, then you get somebody from the opposite. You just have to think differently. But the body does the same basic functions. It just has a different stressor applied. And the body is a net result of all of its experiences to date, which is everything we eat and every stressor that we have. So if we have a constant force on us all the time, the body's just responding to that force.
So interesting. Just thinking about the fact that we're spinning in time and how that is constantly, in a way, pushing us. It's something we never really think about.
We don't think about a lot of things until they stop us from doing something that we want to do. And that's kind of the way humans are. We just move forward.
Yes. So what are some health myths that you see out there that you would like to debunk?
Okay. First one is first. Drinking water is going to make me hydrated.
Okay.
So 75% of Americans, a 10-year-old study, are chronically dehydrated. It takes 5 to 10 years to go chronic, 3 to 6 months to fix. So the leading cause of chronic dehydration is overconsumption of water. Most of the people that feel that they're healthy are dehydrated. That's the biggest myth. And our client base, because we test thousands of clients, is 88% of our client is chronically dehydrated. Chronic dehydration has 3 primary symptoms. The first one is increase in cholesterol, increase in blood pressure, and ADD, ADHD, focus, concentration, and depression and anxiety issues. They're all related in the same. So those are 3 primary symptoms of chronic dehydration. You're 75% water, and the one thing that we should be looking at every single time we look at you is, are you hydrated or not? You go to a gas station and it's full service, they check your oil. They check your windshield wiper fluid. So why don't they do it at a doctor's office?
Right. I mean, when you do body fat testings, they see what percentage of water you are. I'm always low, but I thought maybe my water, just like my body carries less water.
You can also have extracellular and intracellular water. So there's another thing that happens when people, a lot of people live in, you're going to be talking to my wife, she's going to talk about chemtrails, right? So in chemtrails, if you do an LA air quality study, you'll find that there's elevated levels of barium, strontium, and aluminum in the air, severely elevated. When we test the hair follicle of our clients, same thing. Barium depletes our silica. Aluminum's a neurotoxin, Alzheimer's, everything else, as you know. But barium depletes our silica. Silica and water are what we're made of. No silica, guess what? We can't absorb potassium. So you can drink the water, but your body can't get the water to the organs or tissues because it can't absorb the potassium. And then just so if you're living on the West Coast or the East Coast, any coast of the United States or Canada right now, you're probably dehydrated because of the reason and it takes 10, 15 years to get this way, because you've had barium in your lungs, you're not absorbing silica, so your body can't process potassium, so that means that your body can't hold the water. So what we found in these cases is where the body highly needs water in the organs and the tissue, but the body doesn't have silica in it properly or doesn't have the base minerals. And you can't just take sodium, by the way. That's a myth too. If you don't have the base minerals like silica in there, the body's not absorbing potassium. Sometimes people will hold water and they'll be dehydrated in the muscles and the organs. So when you touch the skin, it looks hydrated. But then when you try to touch the organ or the muscle, it's dehydrated. And that's another phenomenon that we see. But the big one is hydration. Listen, the most important thing in our life is air and water. And if 75% of Americans by U.S. government stats are chronically dehydrated, that means that the education that we have around hydration isn't right. It's just plain and simple. So everything you thought you learned about hydration is probably wrong. Water should be structured. And structuring water is a big deal. I know there's all this science and people saying it's all BS and that. Well, in practice, when we use structuring devices like
Kangen machines?
No, Kangen machine is not necessarily structuring. It's more driving for pH. And that's actually another problem too. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But structuring device like that one we have downstairs, that triangle, I was pouring the water into. Oh, this water right here. So what it does is it turns the water into hexagon shape. It absorbs into the tissue faster. And we can argue about the science, even though this has been around for 40 years and it's got 15,000 peer-reviewed articles. We could argue about science all day long, and we'll still never come to an answer. Clients who are chronically dehydrated, normally it's 6 weeks before we can work on them. With a structuring device, we can do it 2 weeks. So water is absorbed into tissue. However it gets there, again, I don't want to argue about it because it's an endless
And
path.
adding minerals to your water as well?
Yeah, but we also have to have elements. So if you don't have silica, you're going to need, if you live on the coast, either side, it's pretty safe that you can just go get silica from the store. It's a liquid, you pour it in your water. You won't even taste it. And that's why the medical medium with the uptake in celery juice. Celery is interesting because it has all the base elements and minerals, and it has 5 different types of salt which absorb differently in your system. So that's part of the reason why celery juice has become a craze, because people feel better because they're getting hydrated. Yeah, I got my own lesson in hydration handed to me pretty recently because I had a bout of food poisoning, and I became chronically dehydrated because I couldn't swallow any water or anything like that. So I had to go in for an IV, and I was still dehydrated, and I didn't have the structured water, and then I had the structured water, and as soon as I had the structured water, the symptoms started to go away. I mean, within minutes. It was very, very noticeable. And again, I can't look to any scientific study to validate that. I can just say this is my experience. And my experience with my clients.
Very interesting. Are there any other health myths you'd like to debunk?
There's a ton of them. So which ones do you want to take? Well, what fluoride?
Sure, yeah, let's talk about that. I feel like my audience knows fluoride is not good, but let's
but
talk.
It's never.
I
never
get messages from dentists like, "Excuse me, can you please show me the studies on why fluoride is bad?" And
yeah, so the answer for every scientist or every doctor or every practitioner when you do something against a norm is show me the study that promotes it. Well, we have studies. Fluoride's an interesting one. It was fluoride. Where it comes from is the inside of a smokestack in a chemical plant. They chip it off. It's the stuff they chip off the inside of the smokestack, which is the residue of the chemicals. And if they put it into the ground, it remediates, or the soil can't be remediated, so they can't get it out. So they don't put it in the ground. So what they put it in is water or toothpaste. So fluoride is a cytotoxin, and again, anytime you have something that's controversial, that's gonna poke at whether it's affect your health, you're gonna have opposing science. And I'll tell you why in a second. So one thing that was interesting for me is as a cytotoxin, what it does is it causes cholesterol to develop on the inside of the cell wall. So you get increased in intracellular cholesterol, and then the other thing that's interesting is it burns the collagen. So it's ironic, but I started noticing about 5-6 years ago, because when clients would come in, or you get athletic women, they're like 20, 25, and they're like hard body athletic women wearing hot pants. And right at their bum cheeks, they got dimples. How does that happen? And where does that come from? Because you're 25 years old, you're a hard body, you're working out. Wait, there's no fat on your body anywhere. Why would you have cellulite? Well, that cellulite is caused by the fluoride. And the fluoride, what it runs through right around your cheeks is your urinary bladder meridian, which is where you're peeing a lot of the fluoride out because you're drinking it. And the other one's the gallbladder. So those two organs are really dealing with it. And that's where the cellulite starts to come. Well, that's actually the fluoride burning the collagen and the fascia. That's a fairly new phenomenon, by the way. You didn't see that 20 years ago.
So how can we get rid of the excess fluoride that has built up in our systems?
It's a loaded question because if you don't do anything, fluoride will not remove itself. So if you have a plan to remove heavy metals and toxins from your system, it has to be a whole body approach. So you can't, a lot of people are doing, I'm going to do a liver detox, or I'm going to go do gallbladder detox, or I'm going to go do an enema or something like that. The challenge is that each time you do something, remember the body's interdependent system model. So every time you affect one system, it has a counter effect on every other system. So you have to make a plan to actually actively engage yourself in becoming chemically free. You have to actually do it with both nutraceuticals and homeopathics and diet. And you're not going to do it if you're going to do it on diet, and if you're really disciplined and smart and you remove yourself from all environmental causes and you can go off in the mountains and hide away, you'll get it done in diet in 3, 4, 5 years. It's not happening for most people. So that's why we use homeopathics and nutraceuticals. They give their body a head start. But we always want the body to move back into food. But really, it's about getting the whole body to start processing without chemicals and getting rid of heavy metals.
So interesting. So you have tons of programs, your new facilitator training, events, lots of things.
Yes.
So can you share some more ways that people can get involved with the Human Garage and learn from you and your epic teachers here?
Sure. We're shifting our business from this mass production of fixing bodies to a small amount of fixing bodies and a large amount of education. And education comes in several forms. So if you're a practitioner out there, we are actually we have so much demand for our services outside of LA. That's our demand outside of LA is infinitely bigger than it is in LA. People come from all over the world. But if we have 600 active clients in New York, and they have 10 referrals. We have enough to keep 10 practitioners busy there for the next 3 years without even lifting a finger. So we're going to be engaging practitioners who are top of the level practitioners. Not if you're just started and you're just getting going, you can come and learn. But we're looking to partner with practitioners who are top of level at what they do at fixing the body and training and educating their system. And they can come through our training and certification programs, and then we will start feeding business to them in their areas. So it's not just a training program. We have business piled up waiting for practitioners. And that's a much different approach, because if you go take another ART or a massage program, there's a million people doing it. There's nobody doing what we do yet. So we have an overwhelming demand, underwhelming list of people to do it. The other thing is that if you're in Venice, you can see, I mean, we're sitting in our Conscious Clubhouse. It's a 4-story, it's roughly about 10,000 square feet all in. And it's designed to interact with people with products and services and lifestyle options that are healthy. So we have, like, for example, tonight we have unwind yoga. So we do yoga, and then we have organic wine. We sit up on the deck with the fireplace as the sun goes down. We've got breath events that happen constantly with my wife Anella teaching. We're doing the Wim Hof event here in June. We're working with Vivo Barefoot right now. We're just working on several different programs to do nature hikes and stuff like that. But we do food events, cooking events, education, seminars. We're talking about doing something with you.
Yes, for my new deck.
Your new deck. And we put it out there and have a party with a couple hundred people, have a reading. So we're here with a place where people can come to where they can start to interact with the things that are healthy and conscious. There's a belief that I have to be healthy or I'm destroying my body. But there's that nice place in between, which is I'm healthy and I'm having fun. And so we want to show people what that looks like, because right now, if you follow the influencers in the media, you're not going to be doing healthy things. And it's a Me Too environment. And what I mean, and I'm not talking about the women and sexuality. I'm talking, if it's good for me, it should be good for you. We think that. But it's not that way. So we're really into educating people with the classes and the seminars. They can come online and they can look and they can register for any of our programs. Like we're doing with Dr. Laura Berman and my wife, we're doing Ecstasy Unleashed. If you want your women, guys out there, you want your women to be completely different in every aspect of your life. And women, if you want to actually regain your power and learn how to manifest and have better relationships, Dr. Laura Berman off the Oprah Network and my wife are putting together a weekend seminar for women. And just things like that. So there's practitioner training, there's seminars, there's courses, there's education, and you can come just hang out. What we really want is we want to engage with people, and people who are conscious and healthy. Because if you're in LA, even if you can find healthy food, which ironically is hard in LA.
It's really hard.
It is. It's really hard.
I literally only eat at Erewhon if I leave my house.
And there's a couple places we can go to. But if you're going to go for healthy organic food, then even if you get there, the people aren't healthy and organic. And that's part of the problem is that, I want to be around people who actually give a shit, who actually are concerned about changing their life. Anella and myself, we've given up our lives. I mean, I'm not from the healthcare business. So the rest of my life is helping people understand how to live this life better. And that's 100% of what we do 100% of the time. We live our life to just do that. So we want people to come engage with us. And we really encourage people to come on down. We're going to have a whole bunch of online courses and events coming too as well. So just look for that. But come to our website, check it out, see what's up there, register, get on our list, and you'll see exactly what's coming.
Love that. So where can listeners connect with the Human Garage? What is your website, Instagram?
Wow, that's a big question. I'm going to have to say things that I don't touch very often, but website's just humangarage.net. I think we're Human Garage LA on Instagram, and I think Facebook, you just type in Human Garage.
Awesome.
We don't use Twitter.
No one uses Twitter. It's okay.
Yeah, we're not tweeters.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with all of us on the Highest Self podcast and with so many people who come here. I know I've really enjoyed my experience this past year doing so many beautiful treatments with you, meeting everyone who's so supportive. There's like 3 people working on you at a time, guys.
Yes.
Like it is amazing.
Different experience.
Such a different experience and so holistic in every which way. And I'm really looking forward to you teaching more people how to use these incredible techniques that you've essentially downloaded from source and are using them to treat people. And I'm super excited we're going to be filming a video or a series of videos about healing yourself with crystals and crystal blankets.
Crystal blankets, healing yourself with crystals. It's amazing what you can do if you just step outside your own door. Yeah, and that's what we want. We want you to be the practitioner. We want to make every single person their own practitioner. And then when we do that, we've really, really made an impact on the world.
Yes. Well, thank you again.
Thank you again.
Guys, be sure to check out the Human Garage. Oof. How amazing was that episode? Every time I speak with Garry, I just learn so much about the human body. I totally geek out over it, but it's incredible to see how much wisdom our body has and how many messages that our body is giving us every single day. I mean, things that we don't even take as messages, we think are just like our weird things, actually are reflections of our bodies telling us that something is wrong. And That's why I love Ayurveda, because Ayurveda is a system based on the mind-body connection and how everything going on in your body is a reflection of the mind and vice versa, and how you can heal both holistically. So I love hearing different functional approaches, modern approaches, different disciplines that really come to the same conclusion, that we are multifaceted beings. And the most important thing we can do right now is go back to radiant, natural health, our birthright. So if you love this episode, be sure to check out Human Garage. Tell them Sahara sent you, and you'll be able to get a free consultation. They also have many educational programs coming up soon. They do tons of events in LA, so be sure to check them out. And if you loved this episode, I would love if you could leave me a review in the iTunes store. And as a free gift, I will share with you the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Simply email a screenshot of your review over to sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. Again, Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com, and I will send you over the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. Thank you, and namaste.